Morning, we'll get started in just a few minutes once everybody gets in.
Hey, Hillary, can you do a sound check for those of us online?
Tony, can you hear us?
Yeah, I sure could. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We got some folks coming in. Good morning. We're going to get started in just a couple more minutes. We've had a couple more folks come in. All right, I think that we've got everybody in here that we have planned, and we'll just allow people to come in as needed. So good morning, my name is Hillary Barnhart. I'm the Assistant State Conservationist for Partnerships and Initiatives. This is our June State Technical Committee meeting. Let me make sure we've got everything working again. Just for starters, for housekeeping, if you are joining via Zoom, please enter your name, title, organization, and agency in the chat. And any questions or comments, we do have someone monitoring that. We will work through those as we go. Please keep yourself muted unless you raise your hand for questions. And also, we are recording this meeting so that you are aware. This will be posted publicly on our website. The agenda today, starting us off, is our acting state conservationist, Nathan Pickert.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Hillary, for opening us up. As Hillary stated, I'm Nathan Pickert. I am our acting state conservationist. My time frame goes until roughly mid-July, so I have a little bit longer yet, and then Juan will be back with us as state con, and I will be back as state resource conservationist. State Tech Committee is a great opportunity to get feedback from partners. That's the main goal of it. We try to present things to you all, things that we need help with, things that we need support on, decisions made, etc. And that's where you as partners come into play to give us that feedback and support the decisions and the guidance that we need to put out. All right. With that, I don't have much else to say. We are gonna get into the agenda. And next up is Deanna Avenet. She is our acting assistant state con for programs.
Maybe zooming in.
Deanna, are you on Zoom?
There was a horrible. Okay.
Okay, I think we can hear you. If, I will go ahead and advance the slides as we need.
Can you hear me?
Hey, now we can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for that.
No problem.
Okay, so hello. Okay, good morning, everyone. So, like Nathan mentioned, as acting for Amber, I'm the acting for program until July, end of July. So my first slide here is just showing you an update of the final allocations that we got from headquarters for our programs. The main programs are EQIP and CSP. So what you can see here is how much we got allocated per each program. Currently, we are working in obligations for the applications that we received for this fiscal year. You can see here that for CSP renewal, the final allocations that we received for Classic was $8 million. For CSP renewals, we already obligate those funding, so we obligated a total of $895,000. And with that, EQIP, we are currently working with EQIP funding. We are continued obligated for EQIP disaster, that Hurricane Ian. We received an allocation of $12 million for that, and like I mentioned, we are currently obligating part of that $12 million. We're at the end of that obligation. And then for EQIP Classic, that is the amount that we receive for EQIP Classic. The deadline for obligation for EQIP Classic is July 14th. So we are expecting to have all the funding obligated by that deadline. We have a detail of EQIP initiatives and CIG that is $900,000. So I just wanted to, like I say, make you an update on that, a final of FA allocations that we received for this fiscal year. Next slide, please. So this is a detail on how we will be spending the funding here at the local level. Local level, mainly we will be targeting those local working group resource concern, just like we decided last fiscal year, and I think it was mentioned in the meeting of January. We have state priority resource concern that we get through the local working groups meeting. So the 80% that we receive from EQIP Classic that I just mentioned in the first slide, it will be mainly for those area pools. So like I said, that we will be targeting those or addressing those resource concerns. The 20%, it will be additionally, and this is mainly for national rankings pool that we have to have through the Florida state. So that will include historical underserved, organic, on-farm energy, urban, tribal, and CAP, that is conservation activity plan. Next slide, please. There's a new pool that we just, I think it was released around March from headquarters, and I just might want you to make you aware of this. A new FA or a new initiative that we have out there is called the Inflation Reduction Act. And the main purpose of this, it's not a program, it's under EQIP Classic, but this new pool, the main purpose is to adopt climate smart practices. This has been released all the states. So we have the final allocation for the state and it's detailed here. So we have an additional to what we receive for EQIP and CSP. We have the funding as well. And you can see here how much we got from each. So we have IRA EQIP and IRA CSP. The deadline as well to have this fund obligated is July 14 as well. So these will also fund additional applications that we received through the years that we were not able to fund with the EQIP Classic funding. So this is an additional funding that we received from national headquarters to be able to fund application with practices that are more related to climate smart. There's a link there. So if you would like to take a look to the practices available for this pool, please feel free to click in that link and it will take you directly to that list of practices available. Next slide, please. There's a new initiative, same thing. We received this probably in the middle of April. So this initiative is more for organic production. So the LTI provides financial assistance and technical assistance to implement conservation practices that support organic production. We have an application cutoff date of June 15, that is tomorrow. So if you know of any organic producer or anyone that is transitioning to organic, this is a new initiative program that they can apply for. Like I mentioned, the application cutoff date is tomorrow, and we will be receiving FA or financial assistance, depends on how many applications we receive through this period. So headquarters is currently monitoring how many applications we receive. The main purpose of this, like I mentioned, is to support organic production. There's the core practices that all applicants need to complete or implement. And then there are many practices that they can implement in this initiative. Those practices more likely are the same as EQIP Classic, but just wanted to make you aware of this that is out there. And like I mentioned, this is an opportunity for organic producer to apply. And the deadline or cutoff date is tomorrow, June 15. So I think that is all the slides that I have for today. Is there any questions for programs? Any concerns? If not, then I'll turn it back to you, Hillary. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. All right, I'll move right into the Hurricane Ian emergency watershed protection updates. I am doing the updates in lieu of Jason Strength, our state conservation engineer. He's in our quality assurance review process right now. After Hurricane Ian, we received 27 different sponsors, a request for assistance for 27 different sponsors. They're located in 15 different counties. 2 sponsors have declined participation in the program, and 2 sponsors had no eligible sites. A damage survey report is utilized to document the damage, proposed action, to correct damage, and document estimated costs for proposed action. 56 DSRs have been approved for the estimated construction of 89.4 million, 67.1 million in financial assistance. We have approved DSRs are for 19 sponsors. EWP operates via locally led cooperative agreements where the sponsor either does the work themselves or contracts the work out. It's entered into 10 agreements with 9 sponsors for estimated construction cost of 58.6 million, with 44 of which is financial assistance. 4 additional agreements are waiting on sponsor signatures. All right, next up we have Nathan Fickert, our acting state conservationist in lieu of Roberto Luciano, our acting state resource conservationist for ecological science updates.
If you haven't noticed, there's acting upon actings right now. So I'm back. I am Nathan Pickard, State Resource Conservationist. Anyway, I wanted to go over our NRCS payment schedule, just kind of our timeline, the overview, how that process works. I know we've reviewed it in the past, but I think it's a good review and a good reminder. We have new people, we have new partners in play. As we get these new partnership programs, that's kind of changed how we build our payment schedule. RCPP, for example, as we get different partnerships and different agreements, each one of those is specific. So certain partners want different practices to address different resource concerns. So I think it's timely to go over this. Payment schedules are ultimately how we provide financial assistance for conservation practices in our conservation programs. The payment schedule itself is just a list of all of the payment scenarios that our planners can use. The conservation practice, so that's what starts, that's kind of like the top of the filter, so to speak, or the top of the pyramid. The conservation practice, like prescribed burning or fence or brush management, that's in our field office tech guide. That explains how and why we do a practice. And then as that goes down and spreads out, we have multiple payment scenarios, or most of the time we have multiple payment scenarios per practice. And payment scenarios and practice schedules are often developed for specific financial assistance programs every year. So every year we do have this opportunity to adjust, change, add practices, add scenarios, or get rid of them if we so see the need. Again, those practice standards, every year and almost on an ongoing basis, we're reviewing those to make sure we're achieving our desired outcomes from applying those conservation practice standards. As state laws change, as resource concerns change, we might change those conservation practice standards. For those of you who've, I guess, been involved over the last couple of years, we've been sending out conservation practice standards for review to this group. All right. Our scenarios are developed at a regional level. So our region is South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. So as a region, we get together once a year, we review our payment scenarios, we review our practices. Oh, sorry. And we go through that process. Are edits needed? Do we need to increase the financial assistance rates, etc.? Okay. The goal there is to have some consistency within the region. While that's not perfect, it is nice to know that, you know, as we have producers that are on that Florida, Alabama line, Florida, Georgia line, etc., we've got some consistency among the payments schedule and scenarios. That's the goal. It's not always perfect. There are differences, of course, but that regional consistency is part of the goal. All right, so once we've decided how we want to implement a conservation practice, what our desired outcomes are, what we think we need for a scenario, we then review what we call components. The best way to look at components, they're like an ingredient for making a recipe, right? So equipment is a component, labor is a component, concrete's a component, seed, different types of seeds are components. We've got hundreds, thousands of components that we can pick from when we're building our payment scenarios. All right, then we're also looking at those implementation requirements or job sheets as they used to be called. So each implementation requirement, we're going to look at that and make sure that our scenarios fit what we're trying to accomplish. All right, once we've got all that information, we're going to put together a scenario. So for example, and this is just wild numbers, right? This isn't specific. I just kind of wanted to show the formula. So we're going to try to calculate what it costs to build a 4-strand wire barbed wire fence. Okay, so we're going to go look and see how much barbed wire is per foot, and we're going to go and look to see how many posts per stretch of fence that we need to meet our standards and specs. And then, roughly how much labor it's going to take to build a fence. And, do we need a pickup truck to get equipment around, or do we need an ATV, or do we need an auger? All those things, we're trying to look at the general concept of how we're going to build perhaps a 1/4 mile of fence. Okay. So we're going to put all those components together and we're going to get that dollar per foot. All right. And again, at this point, it's fairly simple math. We're going to put all those components together, try to get that price per foot. That rate is the 100% payment rate for that practice. Now, again, with RCPP and some of our newer programs, partners may decide to pay that full 100% rate. For EQIP and other programs, we might decide to just be at that 75% or 90% for historically underserved. So this is where the program differences come into play on how we build that practice schedule and payment scenario. All right, general dates. This is good to know, especially for the State Tech Committee group. In general, we have these same timeframes and deadlines every year. Usually, a component change request needs to be done by March, April. So the price per foot of wire goes up drastically. We need to get that in by March or April to try to get that component price up. Obviously, these days, a lot of things have gone up. And so our national team has increased some of those rates without us asking. But as we evaluate every year, if we find things that are grossly under or sometimes grossly over, we need to be adjusting those calculations to try to dial in that payment scenario amount. Once we get through those components, then we got the next time frame, which is a new scenario or an edit to a scenario. That's typically June, July time frame. That's what we're doing right now. Our payment schedule team is going to meet with our regional team at the end of June to kind of go over scenarios, see what edits we need, and see if anything needs to be increased or decreased. For example, last year developed the individual plant cover for citrus groves under the pest management standard. So that was a new one last year. And let's see. Oh, and just an example of an edit, if labor has been underestimated, we might add hours or amounts of labor to that payment scenario to increase that rate. All right, and then roughly July, mid-end July, our final scenarios are submitted to our national payment schedule team. They review those, they audit that. If everything looks good, they will approve it for our use. And then sometime in October is usually when we decide what we want on our payment schedules for each program And ultimately, it's the state conservationist decision to approve that payment scenario. Now, I don't know that every state con across the country looks at each payment schedule before it's approved. Usually they build a team, so we have a payment schedule team to go over this, review that list, and get that approved. And that's where partners need to come into play. Again, especially as this RCP continues to develop, we need to know what people need on that payment schedule. If we don't get it submitted by October, we miss it for that whole fiscal year, which becomes a pretty big deal, obviously. So we need to be communicating, we need partners to understand the process, we need our folks to understand the process so we can communicate with the partner and say, hey, this is what I need for RCPP XYZ or whatever. Then again, usually November, National Payment Schedule Team reviews those payment schedules and payment scenarios one last time. Once that's approved, they push a button and those payment schedules get pushed into all of our business tools for use for planning and contracting. Okay. Any questions on kind of the process, the timeline, how we get to that point, anything like that? Okay. Yeah, so here's some specifics, and this is, again, just a couple things off the top of my head. This is by no means an all-inclusive list. There could be others. Prescribed burning, seems like we've been talking about this for at least the last 5 to 10 years. Insurance rates are increasing constantly for contractors who do this practice. They continue to raise their rates. So it's just seems to be a continual fine tuning of that payment scenario. So if anybody has data, if anybody knows that, hey, we're still way under on those rates, please let us know. We need that specific data so that we can show our national team, hey, we need to increase these rates. Forest stand improvement and woody residue treatment. This is another set of practices that we're starting to use more often. It also relates to prescribed burning. I'm sure if you're familiar with Florida, many of you have seen these forest stands with a lot of understory, a lot of ladder fuels. We want to try to get a burn regime reestablished in those areas, but we simply can't because there's too much fuel and there's too much underbrush to do that. So we can come in with practices like this, clear down some of that understory and safely and effectively get a burn through that stand. Because this is somewhat new for how we're using the practice isn't new, but I would say in Florida, how we're applying it and how we're using it is relatively new. So we don't necessarily have a lot of good data yet on that. Do we need to bump it up? And that's, again, where partners and contractors come in with some actual data, some actual costs, so we can get those rates where they need to be. All right, so here's how we can all help. You can go to our national payment schedule website. You can look at payment schedules and payment scenarios for every state there. That's probably the first step, going and looking at that payment schedule and evaluating if we think those rates are good. Is something redundant or is something missing? You know, there are like 20 nutrient management scenarios available for us to select. We may or may not need 20 different payment scenarios for nutrient management in the state of Florida. I'm a big proponent of simpler is better. It is a lot less confusing for our planners out in the field. So if we could get 3 or 4 scenarios that cover just about everything we do in Florida, to me, that's ideal. So if we're missing something, let us know. If something seems redundant, also let us know. Let's try to simplify that as much as possible. If you do think dates or rates or how we're paying is wrong, please give us documentation on that. They will not let us change these rates just because we think they need to go up or down. They require actual cost data to show what it costs to get something implemented. We are running tight for this year. We could still possibly make some changes, but we would have to act fast. If we want to try to get anything changed, I need to know by June 23rd. If we don't get it by that date, then we're just working on 2025. That's okay. This is an ongoing process. We just need to make sure we're at least somewhat always thinking about it in the back of our head as we're going through our planning and contracting process. And finally, a big thanks to our partners and individuals who have shared cost data with us. That is super helpful. And again, without it, we can't make the changes that we need in Florida to help our producers as much as we can to implement conservation practices. So again, without that, we wouldn't be able to make changes. So thanks to those who have submitted those requests and information. I think that's it. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you, Nathan. All right, I will move on with partnership updates. So our Florida Conservation Innovation Grants request for proposals was announced last month, and you have until July 14th to submit a proposal. Our state priorities are urban agriculture, water conservation, soil health, and carbon sequestration. Eligible applicants are all US-based non-federal entities, and individuals are eligible to apply. All projects must be carried out in Florida. The total available funding is $1 million, and the individual award floor is $50,000, and the cap is at $250,000 per award. Applicants contribute 1-to-1 match, and historically underserved applicants may provide 25% of the total project costs. Projects can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years and not to exceed 30. In the past, these are our priorities that we have used for the last couple of years, and including the ones for this year. And what we're seeking is for a 2024 process, we would like the state technical committee to decide on new priorities. We can use some of the old ones, we can create new ones, but we will have it for 30 days and input. You can email me and tell me, what your inputs are as far as what you think, what our priorities should go. We are looking to hopefully add more money to the CIG pot next year, but that is determined once we get our EQIP allocation. Our CIG comes from EQIP, and we are only allotted up to 10% of that allocation. I'm sorry. Give me just a minute. We're getting somebody. We did, as a state, provide a CIG webinar. It is on our state website. If you have any questions, I am the state contact, and you can email me. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna move on to the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. Denise Liggett is our RCPP coordinator. She is now been asked to be on a special assignment as the executive assistant to the NRCS chief. So she will be starting that detail next week. And we have asked Mr. Mike Ruiz to act as the RCPP coordinator. So all of our partners up to the next 120 days, Mike will be your contact, and myself. So any questions on proposals or any existing agreements, you'll be working with us. And I'll let Denise go ahead and start.
Okay. Thank you, Hillary. So you're probably aware that the RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, announcement went out for new proposals to be submitted by August 18th. So I'm just going to go over the notice of funding opportunity, hit the highlights today. So this year we have $500 million for the classic and AFA projects. That's alternative funding arrangement projects. To put that in perspective, last year we had 200 million. So we have a lot more money this year. 50 million, sorry, has been set aside for the alternative funding arrangements with tribal entities. The individual project maximum has increased to 25 million. And we replaced the 70-30% FA-TA split with a 25% cap on the technical assistance. So these are some changes for this year. The entity held easement maximum federal share is 25, 50, 75% based on the U.S. right of enforcement and the benefit to the historically underserved landowners. We also, under the entity held easements, they're allowing use of covered program deeds, such as the U.S. held easement, WRE, HFRP, and other deed templates for U.S. held easements. And the entity held easements may use the ASEP ALE templates. So that's something new as well. Proposal submission again is August 18th. And we are going to hold a state webinar. It's been slated for July, but we don't have an exact date for that yet. But we will send out something and it'll be posted on our website. So I just wanted to go over the process of how we make selection for the proposals. For the classic process, the state is much more involved than in the alternative funding arrangement process. So for the classic, the initial proposal vetting is done at the national level, and then they are sent to the state for technical reviews. And the RCPP team at the state level review all the proposals, put together a consolidated feedback, provided to NRCS leadership for review, and the chief makes the final selection. The alternative funding arrangements, the national team do the individual reviews and vetting. They put together a subgroup and a national review team who then will share the proposals per state with the state for their feedback, but they do go on and do the review and provide their recommendations, and the chief makes the final selection. So it's a little different for each. So the state technical committee has a role in this and can be provide input to the state evaluation process. The process will be, we're going to email out the process of how we make our review and how the review teams put together and how the scores are managed, but we are asking for your input. You cannot provide input on the specific proposals, but just on how the process is completed for the proposal review. But the notice of funding opportunity is very specific, saying that impact must be at least 50%, must be 50%. So that's how the project will address the resource concerns in the proposed geographic area. 15% for the partner contributions and 35% partnership and project management. How effectively can the experience and resources of the partners support this project? So those that we have to follow those guidelines for sure. That was the end of my slides. So, but there have been some national webinars recently. And so if you're interested in RCPP, the national webinars are posted on the national website under RCPP. And they were held the last couple of weeks. There's some questions and answers and how to apply as well. Lots of good information there. Back to you, Bill.
All right. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
So just an update on our local working group process. We are going to do some updates to the process, and we do not have that fully designed yet. And in the January meeting, we plan to put out the full process and get inputs. Basically with our local working group process, the local working groups recommend state and national program policy to the state technical committee. They identify high priority areas needing assistance and participate in multi-county coordination. And they are there to assist NRCS and SWCDs with public outreach and information efforts to identify educational and producers training needs. The updates that we plan to do for fiscal year 2025 local work group process are the meetings will be held tentatively in late spring or early summer of 2024, which would align more with our programs and the process for that year. The soil and water conservation districts will be required to notify NRCS if they'll be scheduling, organizing, and hosting the meetings. And then the district conservationists will actually be responsible for submitting the local work group questions. We will not be using the Survey Monkey hopefully having more in person. We will be working with those folks that need something that is virtual, but we'll work with that process and then have inputs in January, hopefully, to better frame that up. All right, we're gonna go right into our next conservation easement updates with our newest leadership team member, Marcus Shorter.
Good morning, everyone. Like Ms. Hillary said, I'm Marcus Shorter. I've been here for about 4 months now. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed my time here, and everybody has welcomed me with open arms. Without further ado, I will go ahead and start updating you guys on what easement has going on. We were fortunate enough to get approved for 2 IRA easements, and that IRA easements, we were competing against the rest of the country, and we did very well. Our 2 easements that we were approved totaled 2.2 million, and it was about 456 acres of our IRA easements that we were awarded. We currently have 1 easement application set at pre-approved, and we are in the process of getting that closed. And it is it totals 1,621 acres. So it's a pretty large easement that we are going to be incorporating into the rest of the easements that we have, and it is totaling $6 million. We have 4 ALE set at pre-approved this year, and it is totaling 3,717 acres for those 4, and those should be closed here shortly. We are in the process of getting those all the eligibility and or whatnot completed for those. Stewardship. Currently, stewardship is something new that we have been receiving funds for. And we have currently had $700,000, but I have been shaking the bush, as we say, to try to increase those funds, and I'm very confident that we will be receiving some additional funds so we can do more stewardship. As you guys know, we have over 200,000 acres of easements, and stewardship is a major focus that we need to address, because we have to take care of those easements. So getting as much stewardship money as we can will be very vital for the future of our easements. Things that we would like to keep in place that and it was prior year ideas, and we would like to keep those ideas. And the first being using prior year applications, but funded with current year FA dollars. Now, easements is not like EQIP or CSP. Easements usually take a lot of time. So using those prior year applications, we can go ahead, and we already know what applications we have. So we can go ahead and start go ahead and start making site visits and start preparing. So when we receive those current year 2024 funds, we can go ahead and start processing those. So if we can keep that practice, that will be a great help for us and easements. Also, we would like to keep the value at 80% of the market value. And we have been doing it the past 2 years. So we would like to, it's been a good practice for us. And it helped help us get enough applications so we can utilize the dollars that we get, so. Any questions? Any questions that you guys have for easements or me or easements? Well, I appreciate you guys' time, and like I said, I'm happy to be here, and we'll be working together.
Thank you, Marcus. It looks like we are running a little bit early, which is great. We're gonna go ahead and take a break till right around 10 o'clock. If everybody would like one, I guess we could just keep moving on if everybody's good. I think we probably need one. We'll just go ahead and we'll just come back at 10 o'clock and start on with the next. Give us just a few minutes while everybody is getting back in here and we'll start. All right, we're gonna move on to our source water protection watersheds. A brief background is we have a source water protection initiative that we have a certain fund code that we allot and specific watersheds. Mr. Paul Thorpe, the Director of Resource Management Division of the North Florida Water Management District, is going to present on a couple of watersheds that he thinks and believes that would be a good added addition to the source water protection.
Hi, good morning, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to participate this morning. Yes, my name is Paul Thorpe. I'm Deputy Director for the Resource Management Division at the Northwest Florida Water Management District. And I unfortunately started having some technical difficulties just as we were proceeding, so I'm joined by telephone. So hopefully that'll will work out. Let's see, on April 18th, I was able to attend a Southeastern Partnerships for Forests and Water meeting. And during that meeting, Hillary provided a presentation about the NRCS Source Water Protection Initiative. And as I understand it, with that program, local priority areas for drinking water protection are identified within each state. And there's the opportunity for increased incentives for practices that protect drinking water sources and quality and quantity. And within Florida, it looks like there's some substantial designated areas, and those are concentrated within central and south central Florida and within the Swati River Basin. And so I wanted to bring to the attention of the committee several areas in Northwest Florida that encompass important groundwater and surface water resources that can be readily affected by land management activities. And let's see. So I don't have a specific presentation to share, but I'll describe some of these areas, and we would be very happy to work further with NRCS and other interested parties to further define and delineate any areas of interest. So a couple of areas that I wanted to mention in particular are the Upper Chipola River watershed and the Jackson Blue Spring groundwater contribution area within that. So these are within what's referred to as the Doherty Karst groundwater region of Northwest Florida. This is really particularly concentrated within Jackson County, as well as going down into Calhoun County. This is a karst region, and it is substantially agricultural in land use. The region really has a strong connection, hydrologic connection between surface waters and the land surface and groundwaters, and has very high aquifer recharge rates. The Floridan aquifer is the primary water supply source for drinking water, for agricultural uses and for other uses. And given the relatively unconfined nature of the aquifer in this karst area, it can be quite susceptible to contamination from surface water activities if there are spills, waste disposal practices, non-point source pollution. And so just in general, water quality and quantity are readily affected by land management and land use activities. We do have some technical support documents that we'll provide to the NRCS including some delineations of the watershed areas and of the Jackson Blue Spring groundwater contribution area, which is the primary source of water within the basin, which discharges to Spring Creek and principally through Jackson Blue Spring, which is a first magnitude spring in Jackson County. And then there's a number of other springs and a wider contribution area within the Chipola River as a whole. So in addition to that, I wanted to point out what's basically the Pensacola Bay and Perdido River and Bay watersheds. And this is a broad area. In addition to Perdido River, it includes Escambia River Basin, Yellow River, Blackwater River basins, and as well as the estuary and that watershed. So in this area, the primary source of water supply, including for public water supply and for agricultural uses, is the sand and gravel aquifer. And this water it's a surficial aquifer. It's present particularly in Escambia and Santa Rosa counties and extending a bit to the east. It also, while it's very productive, it's substantially unconfined or semi-confined. It is therefore susceptible to contamination or other impacts from land management activities on the surface. There's variable land uses throughout this area, but there are significant agricultural practices and uses, particularly within northern Escambia County and within Santa Rosa County. A couple of other areas of interest include over to the east of the Wakulla Spring and St. Mark's River Rise groundwater contribution areas. These extend across, in particular, Wakulla County, Leon County, Jefferson County, and into Gadsden County as well. And these are also within a karst region. So it's the Floridan aquifer, that's the primary water source. But it is karst, and in certain areas have been designated as primary focus areas where surface water and groundwater readily interact, and so the quality and quantity of the source water, the drinking water in this case, and the irrigation water is readily affected by activities on the land surface. I would also mention the Econfina Creek recharge area. This is over in Washington County and Bay County in particular. This region is primarily forested, so not as much beyond silviculture and going on in terms of agricultural production, but it's very important for silviculture, and it's also the groundwater is very readily recharged at the surface in this region, and it provides the primary source of water for a number of Floridan aquifer springs on Econfina Creek, including one first magnitude spring, and those in turn to the primary drinking water source for Bay County, which is a surface water source downstream at Deer Point Lake Reservoir. So this is really the extent of what I wanted to bring to the committee's attention. But again, I'd be happy to provide any technical support documents and otherwise work with everyone if there's interest in further defining these areas under this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Also, we've posted the map of our source water protection areas in the chat, and we'll email it out as I'll follow up and email everybody what Mr. Paul Thorpe talked about. Nathan, do you want to have any follow-up comments, or do we have any questions regarding the source water protection watersheds? We need to follow up with anything right now.
I guess I'll just say, going back to what, when we started with the source water protection and having some of these discussions and trying to make these decisions. Obviously, water and source water protection is a huge issue across Florida. Like, we could make the whole state a source water protection priority area if we wanted to. The problem when we don't clearly define things and we don't prioritize areas is, again, our field offices then just see everything as a big lump and a big pile. That's one of the issues. The others is then everything becomes important. Yes, it's all important, but we also need to try to focus on something. So that was kind of the back and forth when we first had this discussion. When we first decided on what these watersheds would be. We're open to expanding more. We're open to changing, maybe, taking a watershed out and putting another one in, whatever we decide we've got to do. But just remember, whatever we end up doing, those funds are gonna then get spent in those areas. That may be good, bad, or indifferent, when we could need it somewhere else. So that's the reasoning behind it. We did the best we could trying to prioritize those, but as the purpose of this meeting and this committee, we're open to discussion and input. So thank you, Paul, especially.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
So again, what I will do is after this meeting, we will post the minutes online. I will send them out, and I will send action items to provide input on. You'll have 30 days to provide those back to us. And so we'll have that. All right, so moving forward, this is just a brief update on our, I'm sorry. we've got
Hillary,
A question. Yes, Tyler?
hey there. I am a little confused because I pulled up the map that you guys just uploaded, and we had worked a couple years ago to recommend some source water protection areas in the Wakulla and St. Mark's Basin that Paul mentioned there. And I'm not seeing those on this map, and I know that we've been programmatically working with those and getting the enhanced cost share in those areas. So I guess I'm just a little confused about the map that was just posted.
Yeah. So this is Nathan again. Certainly, we had a lot of recommendations from a lot of folks the first time we went through this process. I think Tyler, and tell me if I'm wrong, we didn't end up going with some of the watersheds that you had recommended, correct? Is that what you're saying?
No, I thought we did. I mean, we're currently using them programmatically, I believe. I mean, I can circle back, but there was, I thought a number of basins around Tallahassee were accepted.
So that could also been within the RCPP project specifically, correct?
Yes, it could have been. And Tyler, what we'll do.
Oh, it's
is
a separate.
follow you.
This is
Yeah,
separate.
This is for the
Yep.
entire state.
This is the entire state. This source water protection was part of the 2018 Farm Bill, where they mandated that all states take 10% of their funds to go towards designated source water protection areas. So this was the statewide choice. Other RCPP projects or individual ranking pools would be separate from this.
I got it.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other question I would have there is, I believe when I was going through that process, there is some requirement. I don't know if it was specific to RCPP or not, that only like a certain percentage of a state could be designated.
I believe that is correct. Yeah, I believe, and I don't remember what that percentage was, but I believe we did have some sideboards on how many and how big of an area we put in, but I don't recall what that was.
In my follow-up email, we'll provide that information so everybody's aware of exactly what that's supposed to be.
Yeah. The other factor too was, as we picked practices that we felt best address source water protection, we had to look at areas where we could actually implement some of those practices. So if a watershed is primarily forested and timber is the dominant land use, but we wanted to do nutrient management and cover crops as water quality protecting practices, those don't mix, right? We don't typically do those practices on those predominant land uses. So that was part of the equation and the decision making as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think we have another question. Erica from ACT, did you raise your hand?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Hillary. Thanks, Nathan. So I know that the source water protection map does change from time to time. Is that something that's evaluated annually? Like how long would we expect that this would be kind of the focal area, or, you know, how often could it change?
Kind of why we're bringing it up. If we as a group decide it needs to change, then that's the discussion we need to have.
Okay.
Any changes we made now would earliest be implemented in 2024.
Okay, I think it looks great in terms of the spring protection areas that we have in the Santa Fe and Swanee, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Erica.
All right.
All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, so thank you, everybody, for responding to my survey. You know, I sent a couple back in January and then one later with some technical difficulties, so I apologize for that. We did have a first aquaculture / oyster restoration subcommittee meeting. It was really just a group of us meeting, talking about what our priorities are, what our issues, and really just kind of talking at this meeting. We did have a person step up and say that they would like to be chair, which is Albert Wynn from the Wakulla Environmental Institute. Actually, you can't see him in this picture, but his arm is on this dome. And this is part of our RCPP project with Fall Timbers, or an area that Wakulla Environmental Institute has actually started working on. So Al will be great in this capacity and helping guide us through with the subcommittee. And right now, that's really all I have an update for. If you still wish to join, we would love for you to join. Please email me and we'll see what the next meeting comes about. So this was our first one. We still have some goals and things to achieve and really kind of go forward on what we can do as NRCS in helping with oyster restoration and aquaculture. All right, so the next person we have up is Mr. Buck Carpenter. He's the new president of the Association of Florida Conservation Districts. I think he wanted to introduce himself and step up here and speak to everybody.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate that. For you, those of y'all that don't know me, I am Buck Carpenter from Madison County. I'm a perennial peanut hay producer, full-time farmer, and am privileged to serve as the Association of Florida Conservation Districts president. And as such, work on outreach opportunities, and primarily the focus for today is partnership opportunities where we can help promote and engage with agricultural producers, soil and water conservation districts, other governmental agencies such as FDACs, water management districts, and the like, to try to help focus on that locally led conservation component piece. We're trying to make sure that as an organization, we're set up in a way to where we can help connect producers and agencies and different soil and water boards with the right resources to be able to help get these conservation programs and initiatives out there. That is part of the reason that I am involved in this, is to help bridge those gaps and help make those connections. So very, very short and sweet. We have a lot of different things in play right now as far as our partnership engagements and things that we have in motion right now. Probably a few too many for me to wrap my head around just yet. I've only been doing this job now for a couple months, and we're still learning. Matt Griffin is my first vice president, and wealth of knowledge and extreme resources. We try to build these partnerships. And then Ms. Charlene, y'all know her. She is the mechanics behind the AFCD and making everything happen. So, and as an organization, we do stand ready to try to assist in any way possible. So if you can think of any ways that we can facilitate the things that we're doing now better, or possibly even broaden those horizons or go in different directions. We're always happy to listen and engage and do our part to help get that conservation out there. So does anybody have any questions for me? I have been guilty of long-windedness, so I'm gonna keep that to a minimum today. So unless y'all have any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. All right. So moving right along, we have plenty of time for any questions, any discussion we need to have. Nathan, you want to come up here?
I'll wait and see if we
Yeah,
have
we'll
any
see.
questions or if we wanna, anything
Any
specific?
comments or anything that you have questions? We've got Nathan Fickert still in here. We've got Marcus Shorter still in here. I'm still in here. Denise Liggett is still here. And anybody on the call, we definitely want to make sure we address any questions. And yeah, I guess if nobody,
I do have some
Yes,
updates. Hello, everybody in the digital world. My name is Aline Morrow. I am a fish and wildlife biologist with the Partners for Fish and Wildlife Program with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I am currently covering for Chad Allison, our state coordinator. Chad's in a detail until the end of this week, and he should be back after that. He just wanted me to come and provide some updates about what we've been working on. The Partners Program was awarded $430,000 for 5 projects statewide. 200,000 of that was for the Chipola River watershed restoration across private lands in 2 Florida counties and 1 Alabama county, which is benefiting listed mussels. That project came about, it was based on a 2006 watershed partnership between FWC, NRCS, and us. And that actually resulted in the Chipola River Watershed Management Plan. Some of the habitat improvements for these projects include stream bank restoration, channel construction, fish passage, and they're going to be supporting the Northwest Florida Sentinel landscape. That project will be done through our fisheries program with Chris Metcalf. Another 120,000 was awarded for ephemeral wetlands and associated pine flatwoods restoration in the Northwest Florida Water Management District lands. That's project's going to benefit reticulated flatwood salamanders and is also in support of the Northwest Florida Sentinel landscape. The rest of the funding, which includes some of my funds, are going to Peninsular Florida in support of sandhill and scrub restoration and some South Florida listed plant species. I'm also going to give a quick update about our coastal program. So the Partner Sister Program, coastal was awarded $600,000 for 9 projects statewide. 165,000 of that is going to be for work in South Florida Pine Rocklands in support of the Alachua Conservation Trust, RCPP, living shoreline work along the Nature Coast, and much more. Chad, I believe, is working on the North Florida implementation plan for NRCS's 5-year wildlife strategy to help support the reticulated and frosted flatwood salamanders and freshwater aquatic species. That implementation plan is going to address focus areas, landowner engagement, non-NRCS funding, ESA compliance, and Fish and Wildlife Service assisted projects. And finally, the update to the interagency consultation matrix is almost complete. Our final revisions are underway, and we're hoping to have everything signed off this summer. I'm happy to take any questions about the Partners Program, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Aline. I also have an update that Landon Hoffman with Florida Citrus Mutual has provided for us to send out. Denise is going to post it in the chat. Basically, it's a little bit of information on individual protection covers and oxytetracycline injections. You want to fill in any of those, or we just, he asked for us to go ahead and send this out and have it updated. So if there's anybody that looks at this document and has any questions, please email me and we'll work with him to get back with you on it.
Yeah, I think that will speak
Okay.
for itself.
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything else. Kent Wimmer with the Northwest Florida Sentinel Landscape is hosting its first in-person partnership meeting in Niceville on July 20th through 21st. Please contact Ken if you'd like to have an invitation. We posted that in the chat. All right.
Thank you, Hillary.
Hillary,
Yes,
Hillary.
yes.
Hi, this is Kevin Carter from the Florida section of the American Water Works Association.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, good morning. Thanks to Nathan and you for putting together a great meeting. Thank you for putting a spotlight on source water protection. As some of you know, I've participated in the last couple of these meetings. We're working to try to get our drinking water utilities more engaged in source water protection, and we appreciated Nathan coming to our fall conference last year. And I just want to reach out to anyone on this meeting that would like to talk to our drinking water utilities and how we can become more engaged and involved. We know NRCS has done some great work in these priority watersheds, but we want to continue to be active and engaged. And particularly I'd like to talk to Paul. We have some utilities up in the Northwest Florida that I think we could potentially have some partnerships. So thank you again for having these meetings, and I look forward to working with you for more source water protection as we get a new farm bill in this year.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Last thing I have before Nathan closes us out is, again, I've said this a few times now, I will be sending out the minutes and any action items for you to provide input on, and we will have 30 days. So July 15th is the very last day for us to have those. Yes,
Kevin
please.
Carter has his hand up.
He did just speak.
It may, oh,
Kevin, did you have another question or?
And sorry, that was a leftover. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm gonna turn this over to Nathan to close this out. Thank you all.
All right, well, again, thank you all for coming. I did want to brief follow-up on a term that is relatively new and we've touched on a few times today, but it's IRA. That's the Inflation Reduction Act funds. You've probably heard that scattered in throughout various presentations today. It's basically additional sources of funding for a lot of our familiar NRCS programs. So as you saw on Deanna's slides, we've got EQIP IRA, we've got CSP IRA. Marcus mentioned that we've got some new easements with IRA funding. So, you know, more to come on that. That was relatively new to us. Again, in March, we did a sign up and some workshops to try to get the word out on IRA, but we're definitely going to need to do more of that. The funding is substantial over the next few years, and we're going to need all of you as partners to help us implement those funds and to find people who are interested in utilizing those funds for conservation projects on their properties. So if you have more questions on that, please let us know. But certainly more to come on that. Probably the next state tech committee meeting, we'll have some more information in detail on what we're going to be doing with those funds in the future. So other than that, thanks again. I don't have anything else. You guys know where to find us. If you have questions, we encourage you to reach out anytime and let us know what we can do. And if we need to be open to new directions or new opportunities. So thank you all very much.